Picture a strip mall, the one near you. There's a good chance it has not one nail salon, but two, maybe three, almost next to each other. Walk past at 2 in the afternoon and they look half empty. A couple of clients, a row of techs on their phones, the lights on and nobody much inside. And yet they never close. New ones keep opening. So somewhere in the back of your mind, you've probably landed on the obvious explanation, the one everybody reaches for. They must be a front. Cash business, empty chairs, always open. It has to be money laundering, right? It's a tidy theory. It's also, for the overwhelming majority, wrong. The real reason there's a nail salon on every corner is more boring than crime, and a lot more clever. A near-zero-barrier cash-flowing business built on one of the most remarkable immigrant networks in American history, where looking empty is not a problem. It's the whole design. Start with the scale, because it really is staggering. Nail and waxing salons in America are a $25.5 billion industry. Call it around $13 billion for nails alone, spread across well over 100,000 locations. Depending on how you count, somewhere between 200,000 and 440,000 people do nails for a living. It is one of the most fragmented, most physically visible service industries in the country, and one of the few still expanding store count while traditional retail shrinks. But here's the tension that makes people suspicious. This is not a high-margin business. After everything, the typical salon net's only about 4%, down from nearly 6% a few years ago. So you have a low-margin industry that looks empty half the time, that keeps adding locations anyway. On the surface, that combination makes no sense. Underneath, it makes perfect sense. Once you understand 4 things, the chains and the conspiracy theories both miss. The first thing is the simplest, and it dismantles the whole premise. An empty-looking nail salon is not a failing one, because most of them were never built for walk-in traffic. More than half of US nail salons, 51%, take no walk-ins at all. They run on appointments and regulars, so the floor you glance at through the window at 2 o'clock isn't the business, it's the lull between bookings. The same salon can be fully booked from 5 to 8 that evening and dead at lunch, and both are completely normal. A small salon doesn't need a crowd, it needs a list, a few dozen loyal clients who come back every 2 or 3 weeks like clockwork. Run the rough math. A modest salon covering, say, $13,000 a month in overhead at a $45 average ticket needs only around 295 visits a month to break even. That's 10 or 12 clients a day. Not a crowd, a trickle of regulars. Empty at a glance and profitable over a month are not contradictions in this business. They're the same thing. The second thing is the one that really cracks it open, because in a huge number of these salons, the owner isn't even running a nail business. They're running a real estate business. It's called booth rental or chair rental, and it works like this. Instead of employing the nail techs, the owner rents each chair out to an independent tech, typically $150 to $300 a week per chair. The tech keeps 100% of what they earn and buys their own supplies. The owner just collects rent. Roughly 3/4 of booth renters pay a flat fee like this. And look at what that does to the question you started with. If the owner's income is rent, a fixed check from each chair every single week, then it does not matter how busy the floor looks to you walking past. The owner already got paid on Monday. A salon can look dead at lunch, dead on a Tuesday, dead through a slow February, and the owner's core income doesn't move, because they're not selling manicures. They're subletting chairs. They've turned a beauty business into a tiny commercial landlord. The alternative model, commission, where the owner takes a cut of each service, usually around 50-50, is the one that actually depends on foot traffic. Booth rental is the one that profits from an empty-looking room. Once you see that, the suspiciously empty but always open salon stops being suspicious at all. The third thing is the human one, and it's the part the conspiracy theory erases completely. The reason there are so many nail salons run so efficiently at prices no chain can match comes down to a single extraordinary story. In 1975, after the fall of Saigon, a refugee camp called Hope Village opened near Sacramento. The actress Tippi Hedren was volunteering there as a relief coordinator, and the Vietnamese women in the camp were fascinated by her manicured nails. So she flew in her own manicurist, a woman named Dusty Coots, week after week, and helped 20 of those refugee women train and get licensed at a local beauty school. 20 women. From that seed grew an entire industry. Today, by most estimates, around half of all nail technicians in the United States are Vietnamese American, and in California, it's closer to 80%. That is not a coincidence. It's a network. A trade passed down through families and communities where a new arrival can learn the skill from a relative, work in a cousin's salon, and open their own within a few years, because the barrier is genuinely low. A small salon costs as little as $25,000 to $75,000 to open, and a manicurist's license takes as few as 100 classroom hours in some states. Cheap to learn, cheap to open, and a ready-made community to teach you. That is an expansion engine no corporate chain has ever been able to copy. Which raises a fair question. If these are immigrant families, often without long US credit histories or a banking relationship, where does the money to open all these salons actually come from? Not mostly from banks. A lot of it comes from something called a HUI, a rotating savings and credit association, a centuries-old system common across the Vietnamese community and many others. It works like this. A group of people, say 20, each put in a fixed amount every month. Each month, the whole pot goes to one member, rotating until everyone's had their turn. It's an interest-free, trust-based community bank that runs entirely outside the formal financial system. No credit score, no loan officer, no language barrier. For someone shut out of traditional lending, a HUI can be the lump sum that funds the deposit, the build-out, the first set of chairs. It is, quietly, one of the great small business financing engines in the country. And it is exactly the kind of cash pooling that, to an outsider, looks like something it isn't. It isn't crime, it's a savings club. And then there's the other party who quietly wants more nail salons, the landlord. In an age where retail keeps losing to Amazon, a nail salon is the perfect tenant. You physically cannot get your nails done online. Strip mall owners now actively court services like nails, hair, and barbers as internet-proof anchors that pull reliable foot traffic. So the salon has cheap labor it can train, community capital to start, and a landlord rolling out the red carpet. Of course, there are a lot of them. Now, to the theory we started with, because it deserves an honest answer, not a dismissal. Is some of this criminal? Genuinely, sometimes, yes. In the United Kingdom, the National Crime Agency has run a major operation, Operation Machinize, specifically targeting cash-intensive high street businesses used to launder money. And in one sweep alone, they hit more than 2,700 premises and made over 900 arrests. So the suspicion is not pulled from nowhere. But notice two things. First, the businesses at the center of those raids were overwhelmingly barbershops, not nail salons. And they're in Britain, a different market. And second, even there, it's a minority of operators against a backdrop of cash-intensive trades that are almost entirely legitimate. Here's the logical problem with the lazy version of the theory. You don't need crime to explain 100,000 nail salons. You've just seen the explanation: refugee network labor, booth rent economics, community financing, eager landlords, appointment-based demand. Every piece of the puzzle is accounted for by ordinary immigration history and small business math. The money laundering story is what people reach for when they don't know that history. And it quietly smears a few 100,000, mostly hardworking, mostly honest family businesses to do it. The real hard truth about this industry isn't crime, it's labor. The median nail technician earns about $16.66 an hour. A decade ago, a landmark New York Times investigation alleged widespread sub-minimum and unpaid wages in the trade, reporting that forced real reforms, even as parts of it were later challenged for overgeneralizing. The uncomfortable part of cheap nails was never a laundromat for cartels. It's how little, too often, the person painting them gets paid. There is one more reason some of those salons genuinely look quieter lately. And this time it's not by design. Through 2025, salon workers started sounding an alarm. Around 80% of beauty professionals in one survey reported clients coming in less often. The nail appointment, it turns out, is a near-perfect recession indicator. When money tightens, people stretch 4 weeks between visits into 6. switch from a full set to a quick polish, or just do their own at home. It's one of the first little luxuries to go. And waiting for them at home is a fast-growing escape hatch. Press-on nails and at-home gel kits, now billion-dollar markets of their own, eating into the salon. Visit one DIY manicure at a time. Stack that on a 4% margin, and the squeeze is real. But step back, and the big picture answers the question we came in with. There are so many nail salons not because of some shadow economy, but because of a genuinely American one. Refugees who turned 20 manicure lessons into a national industry. Families who finance each other when banks won't. Owners clever enough to rent out a chair instead of betting on the door, and landlords who'd rather have them than an empty unit. The empty-looking salon on your corner isn't hiding anything. It's just a small, quiet, well-run business, the kind that's been hiding in plain sight on Main Street the whole time.